You're in tune to Chicago's most popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC. This is Focus Talk, the thought-provoking, solution-oriented talk show daring to make a difference in our communities. We're talking on a regular basis because the answers really matter. What are we talking about? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're talking about politics, religion, personal development, education, history, music, and then from time to time, we are spotlighting positive people who are doing positive things in and around the Inglewood, Chicago, as well as the entire nation. I'm your host, Dennis Snipe. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Michael Anderson, who is the special agent in charge of the FBI. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, Dennis.
Good. Thank you for coming out and sharing a little information with us about who you are and what you do. So first off, is the FBI what we see on television?
I'm going to say partially.
Okay.
So if you watch the show Quantico, that is not accurate. Okay. I went through Quantico in 1995, and it's fast forward to 2017, been there recently. That is not an accurate depiction. It's a fun TV show, but there's a lot of elements that I think have an element of truth to it.
Okay, all right. So to give the audience an understanding of what the FBI does, how would we go about that?
Well, I always describe the FBI, a typical field office like Chicago, in four components. We have our criminal program, our counterterrorism program, foreign counterintelligence, that's spy stuff, and cyber intrusions, crimes against children involving cyber. Okay.
All right. And so now those particular aspects of the FBI can we say that they're citizen friendly, where individuals who are interested can get more information or can understand a little better about how it's run?
Absolutely. In fact, the FBI, not just in Chicago, but across the country, we're trying to become a more transparent organization, let people peek behind the curtain, see how we work these investigations, because community cooperation and engagement is critical to all of our programs, whether it be criminal, terrorism, cyber crimes. And so we have to be a more user-friendly organization. And so we have to pick up our game in community outreach and in educating the public, either through our Citizens Academy, through our recruiting, and just through our partnerships and how we can conduct our investigations.
Okay. Now, you mentioned community activities as far as being involved in the community. Now, does that also include just clearing up the atmosphere? Because some people just are automatically afraid of the FBI or law enforcement for some particular reason. And so does that include that as well? As
Absolutely.
Far as clearing up that idea?
Absolutely, because we have got to engage the community so people can see what we're about, how we conduct our investigations. Hopefully they will see that we're transparent, fair, and efficient and professional in how we do our jobs. And if they have a positive interaction with law enforcement, not just with the FBI, but our partners, then they're more likely to come to us, share information with us, which helps us do our job and helps put the bad guys in jail and make our communities more safe. Okay.
Now, with that in mind, the FBI involvement in Chicago has increased in recent times, and that's because of the gang violence, because of gun violence. So how can individuals who are here in the community in Chicago help out that particular process?
Well, you're absolutely right. The FBI has historically always worked violent crime in gangs, but we have increased our complement both on the agent side and analytically and all the technical capabilities dramatically in the last couple years, especially as we've seen violence increase in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of community cooperation, it really boils down to see something, say something. We are interested, when you're talking about gangs and violent crime, we're interested in trigger pullers and shot callers. A lot of people traditionally think that that's only the Chicago Police Department, when in fact the FBI, ATF, DEA, we're all in that fight together. And so if folks feel comfortable talking with us, sharing that information, we can proceed with those cases. Because the reality is, if you're looking at homicides and shootings, those cases are going to be driven by eyewitness accounts and other physical evidence. So community cooperation in those cases is more important than ever, as opposed to some of the other things that we do, the wiretaps and the undercover operations and all the technical stuff that a lot of times people see that stuff on television, and we do all of that. For that type of crime, shootings and murders, it is going to be eyewitness testimony. So we really need people's help.
Okay. All right. Now, for those individuals who may have witnessed something, and then you're still dealing with the fear factor, how can you help calm the nerves of citizens who may have seen something and who have the crucial information, but they fear for their own safety?
That's absolutely correct. I'm glad you brought that up, because retaliation and witness intimidation, we're not saying that isn't real. That is a real dynamic we have to deal with. The nice thing with FBI and our partners is we have varying levels of witness protection that we can provide. We can work with the Marshals Service on the full service witness protection relocation, but we have things that we can provide that are much less than that. And it'll be very situational based upon the circumstances of the case, but that is something we're very cognizant of and we take very seriously. We dedicate a lot of time, resources, and funding to combat this fear of intimidation and retaliation for cooperation.
So now, has the focus of the FBI changed, considering that they're here now in Chicago and normally they would be doing other things?
Well, the focus that we have with violent crime and gangs, historically, the FBI has seen more structure and leadership with our neighborhood-based gangs. We may be a victim a bit of our own success, where in the past we've dismantled and disrupted a lot of those more formal structures with these gangs. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing now, and a real challenge, is that structure has broken down. You don't have the same kind of leadership. You have gangs factions that will come together today, they'll break up tomorrow, and so it makes it a lot more difficult for law enforcement to kind of get our arms around the actual organization. So some of our shift, while we still work long-term criminal enterprise cases and are always looking for leaders, what we need to recognize is we need to dedicate more resources to just violent street crime, again, those shooters and shot callers, and partnering more with Chicago Police Department, and having the FBI get more into the fight on that type of traditional street crime that is normally handled only by local police. And that's not only in Chicago, but other field offices, FBI field offices across the country are seeing that shift.
Okay. All right. Now, for the conversations that are held with the elders in the community who are saying, well, why can't they just stop it? And just stop all of the individuals who are selling drugs, who are gang banging, who are creating or making the crime in the community. And I'm sure it's not that easy. So what prevents that from happening specifically? Are there a lot of other moving parts that go along with that?
Well, the sheer volume of shooters out there, we've seen that increase. Going back to that lack of leadership, one thing that when you have a lack of leadership and structure with gangs, there's more internal discipline. So leaders of gangs will say, "Look, we need to tone down the violence. We're running a business here." If that breaks down, then it becomes more chaotic. The violence becomes more random. The violence then spreads from more traditional drug disputes to just social media retaliation. And our concern is, on a nice sunny day, you have somebody that's got a smartphone in one hand and a gun in another, and they read something, a tweet or something on Facebook, and then all of a sudden they can react. The impulsive, it's not even a proper word, but the level of impulsiveness that we're seeing. So we're going from flash to bang so much quicker, and that, I think, social media has not helped us in this regard, because the retaliation and the beefs and the disputes, they're happening so much faster. And if folks out there feel like they're more comfortable with a gun, they would rather be caught with a gun by the cops than caught by a rival drug dealer without a gun. Then that is a perfect storm that results in the violence, I think, that we're seeing.
Okay. Now, is there any sort of push from the FBI to contact individuals who are gang affiliated or who once were, to assist in the efforts of reducing crime and violence in the city?
There is. But again, another challenge of lack of leadership. In the past, when you had more leadership, you could go to individuals that might have more influence over members in their community. And that's the challenge that we're faced right now is who's in charge? And so who do you talk to? Who are the ambassadors for these particular gangs or with some of these particular groups? You have a lot of people that want to make a difference and that will talk to law enforcement, but the key is, do they have a sufficient influence over those folks that are the most violent? And so that has been a struggle. But those efforts are ongoing. It's just it's more difficult to identify who are those leaders and who are their constituents, so that message can be delivered.
So the necessity is to find individuals who are in leadership and negotiate and say, hey, I need you to just relax, to stop what it is that you're doing, or just lock them up.
Absolutely, yes. That is ultimately that is the strategy. But if you have a lot of gangs, and then they come together one day, they break apart the next, you have all these different factions, it's difficult to really find out who's in charge.
Okay. All right. Now, what would be the job of a senior in the community or everyday citizens who are seeing this happen and who may feel powerless? What can they do? What can they say?
Well, our recommendation is, certainly, if you're in the throes of a violent act, you need to call 911, you need to call the Chicago Police Department. Certainly. We are not a first responder. We do not have the resources to serve that type of first responder role. But when the dust settles, and there can be a moment of reflection, we would like the citizens to consider the FBI, because we are in the business of investigating shootings and murders and a lot of this criminal activity that people think might traditionally only be handled by the Chicago Police Department. We want to be an avenue to take that information from folks, and we can help them through the system. We can address issues like witness intimidation and retaliation, like you described, and hopefully we can get a good result. The other thing too, the FBI takes cases into federal court, but we also take cases into Cook County State Court as well. So our goal is to target the most violent of the violent and focus on on that violent conduct, and not who they are, but what they are doing, and taking them into the system, whether it be federal or state, and hopefully we can make a difference.
Now, Michael, on the other side, is there a push to train or educate children as they're growing up in high school, grammar school, so as they get older, they understand their role and how it is that they can assist the FBI in their work? Well,
it's interesting you bring that up, because we have a program. It's called our FBI Explorers program, and it's like a citizens academy for students.
Okay.
I think we target kind of freshman through senior in high school, and that is like a citizens academy. It talks about what the FBI does, and it all talks about in broader terms what law enforcement does, and hopefully improve relationships between law enforcement and the community. But it also talks about leadership and just being good citizens. And then we also have a Citizens Academy for university students, and we have a Citizens Academy for community members, influential people in the community that hopefully can be ambassadors for the FBI and educate folks a little bit on the work that we do and how we are a resource for them.
Okay. Now, where can they get additional information about how to take part?
Well, one website I like to steer you to first up is FBIJobs.gov.
Okay.
That is through that platform, community outreach opportunities can be identified. Also, we are making a real concerted push, not just here in Chicago, but nationally, on diversity recruitment, because that's where we're also going to get help from the community. If we start looking more like the community that we represent, we have to have, the FBI has a broad, diverse background of experiences within our ranks, but demographically, we are in a diversity crisis, and that was cited by former Director James Comey just less than a year ago, and it's true. Our diversity right now is no better than it was 20 years ago. So we are making concerted efforts to focus our almost 100% of our recruiting efforts on diversity. And so FBIJobs.gov is a great resource for folks, whether that be agents, intelligence analysts, interns. We bring in summer interns, and then also through our citizens academies as well.
Okay. And so therefore that everyone can play a role in helping it be a better place all the way around.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Now, are there any other events on the horizon as far as the FBI is concerned?
Well, I did mention a diversity agent recruitment event in July. If you go to FBIJobs.gov, there's information for that. And again, that is really going to be focusing on primarily our special agent ranks to increase our diversity, because the thing about with the FBI is we need to be more diverse at the entry level point of the organization, and then those folks can grow through the organization and take more leadership positions in the FBI. Because I think, again, that will speak volumes as to who the FBI is and what we're about if we're a more diverse organization. And I think you'll get better community cooperation and collaboration if we achieve those ends.
All right, awesome. Now, you mentioned former Director James Comey. What's your opinion of him?
Big fan of James Comey. I think he's the smartest man I've ever met.
Okay.
He was a tremendous director. It was an honor to serve under him for about 3.5 years, both when I was here in Chicago and also when I was in the New Orleans office.
Okay. All right. Have you ever thought about taking the helm?
The director job? No.
No. That's cut and dry. I understand. Okay. All right. Well, we thank you so very much for coming out and sharing some information with us about the FBI and how the citizens here in Chicago can help the FBI do their job. So I appreciate you so very much. And can you give us the website once again? FBIJobs.gov, and that will take you there for employment opportunities. Also will take you there for any sort of relationship you like with the FBI. Okay, sounds good. Michael Anderson, Special Agent in charge of the Chicago Division, thank you so very much for being a guest on Focus Talk. I appreciate you more than you know.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate your support.
You're in tune to Chicago's most positive, popular college music radio station. 89.3 is WKKC.
Joe.
Blackula.